The following Parkinson's Path podcast is provided by Lianna Marie with All About Parkinson's and Answers for Elders Radio.
And welcome everyone to Answers for Elders Radio Network, heard all across the USA and also on your favorite podcast channel. And we are here to talk about the hard stuff. And sometimes there's hard things when you have a diagnosis that might mean your life is changing. Things are happening. And so there's a lot of change, a lot of happenings, and specifically about Parkinson's disease. Obviously, it's much more noticeable. You're dealing with tremors, you're dealing with all types of inabilities with your brain to think things through and all kinds of things. And so we are here back again with Lianna Marie, who is the published author of 1 million Parkinson's books, but most recently the Parkinson's Path. And welcome back to the show, Lianna.
Thank you. And by the way, Parkinson's Path isn't out yet, but soon.
Soon, there you go. A year from now, somebody may be listening to this podcast and it is out. So it
is out. So for all y'all in the future, it is out. It is
there.
Out.
We go. But we're really
totally
excited to have you on the show. And I can imagine in talking about when you get a diagnosis, the first thing is you probably are in a little bit of denial, but when people are asking you, there's got to be a sense of, with all the symptoms happening and all those things, it's embarrassment. I don't know what other word to talk about, but do you find that happens?
In general, there is a stigma, unfortunately, surrounding Parkinson's for all different reasons. So and everyone's different with Parkinson's. We always say that again, over and over and over again. So what you look like versus the next person and the next person and the next person. If you've seen one person with Parkinson's, you've only seen one type of Parkinson's. So, but all that to be said, there are some similarities, and where, for example, some might see someone who's got a stooped posture, something that's common with people with Parkinson's, or they've got a tremor and walking a little wobbly, and the assumption by someone is this person's inebriated. They're something like that. Oh my gosh, that person's drunk. Why are they walking down? That kind of thing. Or the way they are speaking slowly, people with Parkinson's, or their speech is quieter or slower, and the assumption is that they are mentally, or they have some kind of intellectual disability. So those are two common ones, is the drunkenness and this person's not quite got all their marbles, for example. Unfortunately, those are some common ones. And because of that, you can imagine somebody with Parkinson's, like my mom. She was very aware of her tremor. And sometimes when you're a person with Parkinson's, you think it's bigger than it is, though. Like, it was this tiny little tremor to start, but she thought it was like this massive, like big red beacon on her that said, "Look at me." And I get that, because, she's living with it, and it's not something she's very excited to show off, obviously. So that can happen too, where a person with Parkinson's thinks that whatever their challenge is being beaconed away to somebody. But on the other hand, it's still something that needs to be addressed. And so with my mom, when she was a little embarrassed about that tremor, or embarrassed about, I guess a lot of times it'd be out in public when we go out for dinner, for example, she didn't like the attention when she'd walk into the restaurant. Again, not that everybody was staring, but in her mind, everybody was staring at her.
Sure.
And so just those cramped spaces often would make her slow down or abruptly stop, which many people with Parkinson's experience. And so when that would happen, instantly she's like, "Oh my gosh, all eyes are on me." Like I'm stopped in the middle of a restaurant, and get very frantic, very embarrassed that she's not able to move, and that kind of thing. And I think, so those were some specific things that could happen or would happen with her. It did take some time for her to sort of grasp, first of all, to sort of just accept it, relax about it, and go, you know what, this is me. And whatever y'all think about me is what you're thinking. And they may not even be thinking that, but we did address some things to try to kind of circumvent certain situations, if you will, that would not attract attention.
Uh-huh.
For example, those crowded situations, I often would say, okay, what's the restaurant layout? Where are we going? Where are we going to sit? And I didn't get mom in. We didn't go into the restaurant until I knew if she was worried about her wheels shutting down, her legs stopping or whatever. I'd say, okay, well, you know what, mom, we're going to get you a spot right at the front of the restaurant. We're going to get, so that there's less attention, or we've asked for a booth to the side, or whatever it was, just to kind of get that. If we just planned that a little bit ahead, it wasn't this big, didn't have to be this big. Oh my gosh, she's because again, I will say sometimes she got a little bit more anxious about something that never wasn't even occurring, but she in her mind was thinking, everybody's looking at me. So those are some things though, that we did, try to pay attention to get around. I don't know. It's, I guess, not unlike a lot of people who have disabilities don't want the attention. Like, hey, I'm in a wheelchair. So
and it's a vulnerability when you look at you're feeling vulnerable and exposed. And in that situation, there's this feeling of, uncertainty. And it's interesting. It's not regarding Parkinson's, but I just finished watching the Bridgerton prequel about Princess or Queen Charlotte and King George III, and how his mental state, but he was embarrassed, and he was hid himself for the first part of their marriage. The thing that was interesting is there was this thing that they did together, and it clicked on me with a caregiver, and they had a kind of a mantra that they'd say to each other, you and me. It's like we're a unit, we're a team. And I think that's the piece when I look at when you're taking care of someone, to say, I've got your back. I'm part of you. I'm with you. Wouldn't you say that that's a big role that
championing, being my mom's champion, or being your loved one's champion. And, one of the things we found really helpful was honestly using humor. And my mom had to be very deliberate about, sometimes I said, Mom, you're right. That person did talk down to you, and you need to stand up for yourself. You need to say, you know what? I'm owning my life here. Parkinson's is I have Parkinson's, but Parkinson's doesn't have me. And by the way, I'm still me. And, but the humor aspect too is like, if it was a stranger, because you talk differently to a stranger than you do to your, a friend or somebody, and a stranger, you're like, I'm not dead yet. Like if she fall over or lean into something and somebody's like overly, oh my gosh, I gotta, and she's like, I'm okay. And, or whatever, however you want to approach it. But some people find, just having that, it's not easier said than done, but taking yourself a little less seriously. Cause of course, at the beginning, it's you're so much about you, and you're so focused now on, oh my gosh, that tremor. Oh my gosh, my slurred speech, or whatever it is that is attracting people. But if we just kind of go, you know what? Again, easier said than done, especially at the beginning. It takes time. I'm not saying that this is an easy task,
right?
But in general, the more we can take things a little less seriously, add a little humor and playfulness. And, Michael J. Fox is great at making jokes about himself, like when he falls or something like that.
Well, he talks about the elephant in the room. And I think one of the things that no matter what kind of issue that somebody might have, people tend to talk around it, or they don't bring it up, or something like that. I think it's great when, number one, it can be there in the room with you, and everybody is there to support that person, even though that thing is there in the room. And that's the thing that I love about what you're championing, because so often when we go visit a friend or a family member, that may have a diagnosis, we don't bring up the diagnosis. They may be, having cancer or terminal illness or something like that, and you never know how to bring it up.
Yeah.
Do you have any advice on that?
Well, because it is awkward, right? And I like it, I try to talk to people with Parkinson's and say, ask them, like, what is your preference? I mean, if they've told everybody about their diagnosis, it's like, hey, it's part of my life. Do they want to talk about it all day long? No, because they want to be known for who they are, not Parkinson's. It's just that there is this beginning phase of how do we navigate this together? You have this thing, and it's helpful when a person with Parkinson's does say, hey, I'm still the same person. And yeah, look at my hand over here. Yeah, it's got a mind of its own and it's going to move around while we're talking. But hey, you know what? I'm still me. Let's just still have this conversation. But if you need to ask me questions about what's going on with my body, like, it's an individual thing, because some people are very private and they're like, I don't want to talk to you about my medical diagnosis. Like, I just want to, but I feel like the person with Parkinson's does have to set those boundaries with the friends, their family members, and say, here, I'm fine. Ask me questions. Or, you know what? I'd just rather we just talk about my, whatever else, anything. But,
and that's, you could do, there's days you're going to want to talk about it or not. So obviously, getting back to what you're saying, just have the conversation, but be open to where they are. Wouldn't you say that that's true? There's some days that it's an important thing. Some days.
Let them lead the conversation when it comes to Parkinson's, and otherwise, you know what I mean? Just be there and offer, just say, hey, because a true friend does that. They don't bail on you and just say, oh my gosh, you've got a disease and now I'm out of here. So a true friend is just be that friend still, right? It's not, it's try not to make it all about Parkinson's.
Exactly.
Which is my website.
Well, that is true. Yes. And for those of you, you can always reach Lianna at her website, which is allaboutparkinsons.com. And we also invite you to listen to more of Lianna Marie's podcasts on your favorite podcast channel. And Lianna, we look forward to talking to you again soon.
Thank you.
The preceding Parkinson's Path podcast is provided by Lianna Marie with All About Parkinson's and Answers for Elders Radio. To learn more about Lianna's story, her books, The Parkinson's Wall of Honor, and more, go to allaboutparkinsons.com.